The sun burned bright over Venice Beach, turning the sand into gold and the air into a mix of salt, sweat, and street food smoke. Music blasted from portable speakers. Skateboards rattled across concrete. Tourists filmed everything. Street performers shouted for attention. It was chaos, the kind that felt alive. Near the outdoor gym, a massive 300-pound strongman had gathered a crowd. Veins bulging. Muscles flexing. He slammed heavy weights like they were toys, feeding off cheers and phone cameras. Every lift louder. Every pose bigger. Every word sharper. Then his eyes locked onto a quiet man standing near the boardwalk. Simple clothes. Calm posture. Hands relaxed at his sides. The strongman smirked, pointed, and shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. Real men have mass. The crowd burst into laughter. Some turned. Some recorded. Some waited for drama. But the man didn't react. No anger. No argument. No embarrassment. Just calm. The strongman laughed again, louder this time, stepping closer, expecting a reaction. But instead, something shifted. The air felt different. The crowd noise faded. Phones slowly tilted toward the quiet man. And then, exactly 10 seconds later, everything changed. What nobody there expected was about to happen next. The late morning sun stretched across Venice Beach like a spotlight, making everything brighter, louder, and more intense. Heat shimmered above the sand while waves crashed steadily in the background, creating a rhythm that mixed with music blasting from street speakers. The boardwalk was alive, skateboard wheels scraping pavement, vendors calling out deals, artists painting portraits, and tourists stopping every few steps to take photos. The smell of sunscreen, ocean salt, and grilled street food floated through the air. Near the famous outdoor gym area, metal bars glowed warm under the sun. Chains clinked. Weights slammed. Groups of bodybuilders rotated between pull-up bars and benches, their skin shining with sweat and oil. Some trained seriously, focused and silent. Others flexed for cameras, chasing social media clips and quick fame. Every few seconds, someone cheered, laughed, or shouted encouragement. Tourists crowded around the gym fence, amazed by the raw physical power on display. Phones were everywhere, filming workouts, selfies, slow-motion flex videos. Kids pointed. Older visitors shook their heads in disbelief. It was part fitness zone, part street performance stage. At the center of one growing crowd stood the strongman. He was impossible to miss. Over 300 pounds of dense muscle and mass, shoulders like concrete blocks, arms thick as tree trunks. His skin was red from the sun, veins visible across his forearms. Every movement was exaggerated, designed to be seen. When he lifted, he didn't just lift, he roared. When he dropped weights, he made sure they slammed. When people watched, he made sure they stayed watching. His personality was just as big as his body. He was loud, not just speaking, but dominating space with his voice. He was ego-driven, every sentence sounded like a challenge. And he craved attention, constantly scanning the crowd to make sure eyes stayed on him. He fed off reactions. Cheers made him louder. Phones made him perform harder. Even nervous laughter fueled him. To him, strength wasn't just physical, it was dominance, presence, control of the moment. Not far from that chaos stood a man who looked like he belonged to a completely different world. Simple dark t-shirt. Plain pants. No flashy brands. No jewelry. No bodyguard. Nothing that screamed importance or status. He moved slowly, comfortably, like someone with nowhere urgent to be. There was a quiet confidence in the way he stood, shoulders relaxed, posture natural, eyes observant but calm. He wasn't trying to be noticed. He wasn't avoiding attention either. He was just present. Every few moments, he glanced toward the ocean, listening to waves more than the noise behind him. He watched street performers for a second, smiled slightly at a kid dropping an ice cream, and stepped aside politely when tourists crowded the walkway. He looked like someone simply enjoying the beach. No performance. No ego. No need to prove anything. If you didn't know who he was, you might think he was just another visitor enjoying the California sun. But there was something about his stillness, something grounded, controlled, and steady, like someone completely comfortable with himself, regardless of who was watching. And in a place built on noise, attention, and performance. That quiet presence stood out more than anything. The strongman wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his wrist, then grabbed another heavy barbell like it weighed nothing. The metal clanged as he lifted it high, holding it there long enough for cameras to focus. His chest expanded as he soaked in the cheers, the whistles, the constant clicking of phone cameras capturing every second. Then he looked back toward the quiet man standing near the edge of the crowd. A slow grin spread across his face. "You see this?" he shouted, flexing one arm while balancing the weight with the other. "This is what power looks like." Some people cheered louder. Others laughed, sensing drama building. He dropped the barbell with a thunderous crash and stepped forward, pointing again. "Size matters," he said, voice booming over the boardwalk noise. "Mass equals strength. That's just facts." A few people nodded. Others just kept recording, hungry for viral content. The quiet man didn't respond. He just stood there, relaxed, watching like someone observing waves roll in and out. The strongman laughed. "No answer," he said. "Come on. You standing there like that, you think you're strong." The crowd tightened into a half-circle now. Phones rose higher. Some people switched to live streaming. You could feel it, that shift when strangers suddenly become an audience waiting for conflict. The strongman paced slowly, like a performer controlling a stage. "Real men build size," he continued. "Real men show power. Not just stand around looking like tourists." A few nervous laughs spread through the crowd. But something else started happening. Near the back, a girl squinted at the quiet man, tilting her head slightly. "Wait," she whispered to her friend. Her friend leaned closer. "What?" I think that's him." "Who?" She pulled out her phone, quickly searching, comparing, glancing up again. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That is him." The friend's hand flew to her mouth. They didn't shout. They didn't make a scene. But whispers started moving outward like ripples in water. "Is that? No way. It looks like him." "Yeah, I think it is." A few people stopped laughing. Some lowered their phones for a second, confused. Others raised their phones even higher, realizing this moment might be bigger than they thought. But the strongman noticed none of it. He was locked inside his own performance. His ego was growing with every second of silence from the quiet man. To him, silence meant weakness. Lack of reaction meant victory. He stepped even closer now, close enough that cameras could capture both of them in the same frame. "You know what the problem is today," he said loudly. "People think attitude equals strength." He tapped his own chest. "This is strength. Wait. Power. Presence." The crowd noise shifted again. Less laughter now, more tension. The whispers kept spreading. Two tourists exchanged wide-eyed looks. A guy in gym clothes leaned toward his friend and muttered, "Dude, if that's really him." His friend shook his head slowly. "This is about to go bad." Still, the strongman kept going. "You can't fake mass," he said, flexing again. "You either have it, or you don't." He stared directly at the quiet man now, waiting, demanding reaction, craving pushback. But all he got was calm. No anger. No challenge. No fear. Just steady eyes. Quiet breathing. Total control. And somehow, that calm started making the strongman more aggressive. Because deep down, ego hates silence. Ego needs resistance to feel powerful. He laughed again, louder than before, almost forcing the sound. "Say something," he pushed. "Or are you just here to watch real men train?" The whispers in the crowd were louder now, but still hidden under music and ocean waves. More people were realizing. More phones were focusing, not on the strongman anymore, but on the quiet man. And still, the strongman didn't notice. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck, and spread his arms wide to the crowd like a champion soaking in victory. His confidence swelled. His voice got louder. His movements got bigger. Because in his mind, he had already won. He thought this was just another moment where size, noise, and dominance controlled the story. He had no idea the story was about to flip. And the quiet man still hadn't moved, still hadn't spoken, still hadn't reacted. But something in the air was shifting, and the next few seconds were about to change everything. The strongman finished another loud set, dropping the weights with a crash that echoed across the gym area. He raised his arms, soaking in the attention, chest rising and falling like he had just conquered something bigger than iron. The crowd noise swelled again, cheers, whistles, phones recording from every angle. Then, behind the front row of spectators, a sudden commotion broke out. A skateboard clattered hard against the concrete. Someone shouted, "Hey! Careful!" Heads turned. A teenage boy had fallen near the edge of the training area, his skateboard sliding several feet away. He tried to push himself up but winced sharply, grabbing his ankle. Pain flashed across his face, and panic quickly followed. For a split second, nobody moved. People watched. Some recorded. Some just froze, unsure if they should step in. The strongman glanced over, then looked back to the crowd, clearly annoyed the attention had shifted away from him. "Someone get him up," he said casually, like it wasn't his problem. Then he flexed again, trying to pull the focus back. But the quiet man had already started walking. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just direct. He stepped through the crowd, kneeling beside the boy without saying a word at first. "You okay?" he asked calmly. The boy shook his head, breathing fast. I think I twisted it." The quiet man nodded once, steady and focused. He gently helped the boy sit upright, checking the ankle carefully, not like a random bystander guessing, but like someone who understood exactly what to look for. "Don't put weight on it yet," he said quietly. The boy nodded, swallowing hard. Around them, phones slowly lowered. The energy changed. Less spectacle. More attention. More respect. The quiet man picked up the skateboard with one hand and placed it beside the boy, then stood and scanned the area. "Can someone bring water?" he asked calmly, not shouting, but somehow everyone heard. A woman immediately rushed to grab a bottle from her bag. Another guy stepped forward. "I've got a small first aid kit." The strongman stood frozen for a moment, watching the crowd shift, watching their focus move completely away from him. No cheering. No laughing. No flex videos. Just people watching the quiet man help someone who needed it. The strongman scoffed loudly, trying to pull control back. Yeah, he said. "Anyone can play hero." But his voice didn't land the same way anymore. Because the crowd wasn't looking at him. They were watching something else now. Something real. The quiet man helped the boy stand carefully, supporting his weight without effort, guiding him slowly toward a bench. "You've got someone with you?" he asked. The boy nodded, pointing to a nervous friend pushing through the crowd. "Stay off it for now," the quiet man said. "Ice it as soon as you can." The boy looked up, recognition slowly dawning in his eyes. "Wait, are you?" The quiet man gave a small, gentle smile. "Just focus on your ankle," he said. The friend arrived, thanking him repeatedly, helping the boy sit down safely. For a moment, everything felt still. Even the ocean sounded quieter. Then the quiet man turned back toward the open space near the gym. The strong man stood there, arms crossed now, expression tight, not smiling anymore. The crowd parted slightly as the quiet man walked back through. No dramatic music. No victory pose. No speech. Just calm steps. But the shift was undeniable. Where people had laughed before, now they watched with quiet attention. Where phones had chased spectacle, now they followed presence. The strong man tried once more. "So what?" he said loudly. "Helping someone doesn't make you strong." The quiet man stopped walking. For the first time, he looked directly at the strong man. Not angry. Not aggressive. Just steady. And somehow, that felt heavier than any weight on the beach. The strong man held the stare for a second, then two. And for the first time since the whole thing started, he looked unsure. Because strength had just been shown. Not through size. Not through noise. Not through dominance. But through control. Through awareness. Through choosing to help, when no one was watching for clout. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just stood there, silent. And in that silence, everything had already changed. For a few long seconds, nobody spoke. The strongman stood frozen in the center of the training area, arms still crossed, but the confidence behind the pose had cracked. The noise he had controlled just minutes ago was gone. No cheers. No laughter. Just quiet observation. And he felt it. That shift. He looked around the crowd, expecting support, expecting someone to laugh, someone to back him up, someone to restore the moment he had owned all morning. But instead, he saw something else. People weren't looking at him anymore. They were looking past him. At the quiet man. Phones that had once been pointed at flexing muscles and slammed weights were now slowly turning. Camera lenses adjusted focus. Some people even stepped sideways to get a clearer shot, not of the strongman, but of the man who had just helped a stranger without hesitation. The strongman swallowed, jaw tightening. In his world, attention was power. And he could feel it slipping. One guy near the front lowered his phone from recording the strongman and started filming the quiet man walking back toward the boardwalk. A girl whispered, not even trying to hide it now, "That's really him. I swear." Her friend nodded quickly. "Yeah. Look at him. He's not even trying." More whispers spread. Recognition. Respect. Curiosity. The strongman shifted his weight, suddenly aware of how loud his breathing sounded in the silence. He rolled his shoulders, trying to reset the moment, trying to rebuild the dominance he had lived in for years. "Okay," he said loudly, forcing a chuckle. "Nice good guy act." No one laughed. Not a single person. The sound died the second it left his mouth. That's when it hit him. Hard. This wasn't his crowd anymore. He looked at the quiet man again, really looked this time. Not at the clothes. Not at the size difference. Not at the lack of performance. But at the way he moved. Calm. Balanced. Controlled. Like someone who didn't need to prove anything to anyone. The strongman's stomach tightened. Because deep down, he recognized something he couldn't fake. Real confidence. Not the loud kind. Not the aggressive kind. The kind that exists even when nobody is watching. A guy near the pull-up bars spoke just loud enough to be heard. "Man." He didn't even hesitate. Another voice. "That's real strength." The words weren't shouted, but they landed heavier than any insult. The strongman exhaled slowly, staring at the ground for a second. In that moment, he replayed everything. The pointing. The laughing. The mocking. The speech about size and power. And now, standing in the middle of a crowd that had emotionally walked away from him, he understood something he had never had to face before. He had misjudged him completely. Not just who he was, but what strength actually looked like. Across the space, the quiet man paused near the edge of the boardwalk, glancing back toward the gym area. Not with anger, not with victory, just with quiet awareness. More phones lifted. Not aggressively. Not like paparazzi. More like people wanting to capture a moment they knew mattered. A kid whispered to his dad, "Why is everyone filming him?" The dad answered quietly, "Because he didn't try to be important." The strongman closed his eyes for a second, then opened them again. For the first time in years, he felt small. Not physically, but internally. Because all the noise, all the muscle, all the performance, suddenly felt fragile compared to the calm standing across from him. Someone in the crowd started clapping, soft, hesitant. Not for a show. Not for a performance. But for what they had just witnessed. Another person joined. Then another. It wasn't loud. But it spread. Not cheering. Respect. And none of it was for the strongman. The quiet man didn't bow. Didn't wave. Didn't acknowledge it with ego. He simply gave a small nod, like he appreciated the moment but didn't need it, and turned back toward the ocean path. Phones followed him. Not because he demanded attention, but because he never chased it. The strongman watched him walk away, chest tight, thoughts louder than any crowd had ever been. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't the strongest presence in the space. And for the first time, he understood why. The soft clapping slowly faded into the natural sounds of Venice Beach, waves rolling in, skateboard wheels scraping concrete, distant music drifting through warm air. Life was already moving forward again, like it always did. The quiet man stood near the edge of the boardwalk for a moment, looking out toward the ocean. The sunlight reflected off the water, creating thousands of small flashes of light that danced across his face. He took a slow breath, like someone grounding himself, like someone who never needed chaos to feel alive. Behind him, a few people were still filming. Not aggressively. Not invading. Just quietly capturing the final seconds of a moment they knew they would talk about later. He turned slightly when he noticed them, and instead of ignoring them or playing to the cameras, he simply gave a small, respectful nod. Not a celebrity wave. Not a performance gesture. Just acknowledgement. Then he gave a faint, almost shy smile, the kind that didn't ask for attention, didn't expect applause, didn't demand validation. And with that, he turned and started walking down the boardwalk. No security. No entourage. No dramatic exit. Just steady, relaxed steps into the afternoon crowd, blending back into normal life like he had never been the center of anything. Within seconds, he was just another person on Venice Beach again. Some people watched him go with quiet admiration. Some lowered their phones, almost feeling like they had just watched something private and meaningful, even though it happened in public. A few people exchanged looks, the kind that said, "Did that really just happen?" Near the gym area, the strongman hadn't moved. The space around him felt bigger now. Quieter. He stared at the ground, jaw tight, replaying everything over and over in his mind. The moment he pointed. The laughter. The words about real men. The confidence he had felt just minutes ago. And then the shift. The silence. The crowd turning. The realization spreading. His chest rose and fell slowly, but not from physical exhaustion this time. From something heavier. 4 years, strength had been simple to him. Lift more. Be bigger. Be louder. Take space. Command attention. And it had always worked. Until today. He looked toward the boardwalk where the quiet man had disappeared into the crowd. For the first time, there was no anger in his expression. No defensive pride. Just thought. Deep, uncomfortable thought. A couple of people walked past him, no longer stopping to watch, no longer asking for photos, no longer cheering for another lift. The moment had passed. And he knew it. One of his gym friends approached carefully. "Hey man, you good?" The strong man nodded automatically, but the answer didn't feel real. "Yeah," he muttered. "Yeah, I'm good." But his voice was quieter than usual. Less certain. He looked down at his hands, hands that had lifted thousands of pounds over the years, and for the first time, they didn't feel like proof of anything. Just tools. Just muscle. He sat down slowly on a nearby bench, elbows resting on his knees, staring out toward the sand. The ocean kept moving. The world kept moving. And inside his head, something had shifted. Not broken. Not destroyed. But cracked open. He thought about the moment the quiet man had walked past him, not threatening, not dominant, not trying to win anything. Just existing with a kind of calm strength he had never learned. And that realization stung more than embarrassment. Because embarrassment fades. But realization stays. A kid rolled past on a skateboard. A couple laughed while taking selfies. Music from a street performer picked up again. Normal life. The strongman exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like proving something. He just felt like thinking. And somewhere out in the moving crowd of Venice Beach, the quiet man was already gone. Not because he needed to escape. Not because he was chased by attention. But because he never came there to be seen. He just came to enjoy the beach. And now, he was doing exactly that. While behind him, one very loud man sat in rare silence, learning something he would never forget. The sun dipped lower over Venice Beach, casting long shadows across sand and boardwalk. Music drifted lazily from street performers, skateboard wheels squeaked on concrete, and laughter echoed from nearby cafes. Life was moving forward, as it always did, but for those who had witnessed what just happened, nothing would feel quite the same. Because one simple truth had been proven. Real strength isn't measured in pounds or inches. The strongman had all the mass, the muscles, the loud presence, everything society often equates with power. Yet it wasn't enough. He had dominated the space with noise, ego, and spectacle, believing attention and size were the ultimate indicators of who was strong. Then, in a calm, quiet way, someone smaller in presence but bigger in presence of mind changed everything. Without a flex, without a yell, without performing for cameras, he simply acted with discipline, awareness, and respect. That's the moment true strength showed itself. Real strength isn't about who lifts the heaviest bar. It's not about who makes the loudest noise. It's not about dominating a crowd for applause. Real strength is discipline, controlling your impulses, choosing your actions carefully, acting without needing validation. Real strength is respect, noticing the needs of others, helping without expectation, standing firm without arrogance. Real strength is control, over your ego, your reactions, your presence. The quiet man walking away had shown all of that. No spectacle. No performance. Just quiet confidence, calm, steady, undeniable. And in that calm, he outshone someone who had thought size and noise were power. And that's the ultimate lesson. Quiet confidence beats loud ego. In a world that constantly shouts for attention, that rewards performance over presence, that mistakes size for strength, the true mark of a real person isn't what everyone can see. It's what they carry inside, how they act when nobody is cheering, when no one is filming, when the spotlight is elsewhere. It's a lesson not just for Venice Beach, not just for gyms, but for every moment in life. Speech balloon, now it's your turn to weigh in. What is real strength, body or mindset? Type your answer in the comments. Strength flexed biceps if you believe mindset, discipline, and respect define power. EGO fire if you think size, dominance, and attention are what make a real man. Your voice matters. Every perspective counts. Let's start a conversation about what real power truly looks like, beyond muscles, beyond noise, beyond appearances. Because at the end of the day, the world respects quiet confidence far more than loud ego. And that's a lesson worth remembering, wherever you are.